on schedule at 7:15. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Bernie Gill. I'm the athletic director here at Mount Doug High School. I've been a teacher and a coach and here at Mount Doug for close to 20 years. During that time, I've been the athletic director for many of those years. And it's a big responsibility taking over as what is Mount Doug Athletics. In the 85 years that the school has existed, we have had lots of success and we have some great tradition. So tonight, we're going to talk specifically about Mount Doug track and field. If we were to talk about all of Mount Doug athletics and all the history, we'd have to camp out and be here for days. But tonight, we're talking about the history of Mount Doug track and field. And with me to discuss that, it's a pleasure to introduce on the far end, we have former student, former Mount Doug teacher, and also coach, Mr. John Howe. Hey. On the far right, also, former student, former teacher, and former coach, Mr. Daryl Hooker. And the person that I refer to since I've come here, and I refer to him to our current students and track and field athletes, the person I call the legend in the center here, Mr. Stan. So again, 85 years, we have lots of success, and again, what we measure success here at Mount Doug Athletics and have for a long time. It's not just about winning, it's about lots of involvement, having participation, students having fun, but have tradition also, it helps to have success. So when it comes to track and field, that success began in the mid-1960s. Not coincidentally, when the gentleman in the middle here, Mr. Stan Gill, came to Mount Doug High School. So Stan, everybody wonders, so with all the success you had in track and field, were you a great track and field athlete, and did you get started here in Victoria, or tell us some of your
Didn't run track and field.
Didn't
We had no track program in our school.
Okay.
Anyway, I was born in New Brunswick, just outside of Fredericton, and I was 17 when I graduated from high school. So I decided I wasn't ready for university. I joined the Navy. Okay, put 5 years in the Navy. And during that 5 years, I came to Victoria 3 times. Okay? Once by train, once by plane, once by ship. And of course, that sold me on Victoria. And I was bound to come back sometime. So I did the 5 years in the Navy. The Navy was very good. It was the best decision I ever made because I was immature. I grew up, and of course, I traveled. Some of the places I saw, you know, you probably pay thousands of dollars to go there. I got it for free. Places like Bermuda, Jamaica, Cuba, before Castro, and then Europe, Dieppe, Toulon, France, Marseille, France, walked down the coast of France to Italy. We didn't stop in Monaco because Grace Kelly wasn't there yet. And so then we had many stops in England, mainly the Navy towns. So the Navy was very good for me. I met a lot of people, both male and female, and we had a great time together. But I didn't want to make a career of it. I knew there was something else out there. It came down to teaching or forestry, and the teaching won out. So went to teachers' college. That's the way we did it back in those days. The teachers were short. Teachers were really, it's hard. You could get a job any place you wanted to get a job back in those days. And so I went to teachers' college, met my wife, got married, and we both taught 6 years in New Brunswick. And then I asked her one day, would you like to go to Victoria? She said, how about next month, you know? And so, yeah, we ended up out here pulling a U-Haul trailer with all my belongings, which wasn't very many in those days. And then before we came out here, though, I went to the University of Maine to finish up my master's degree. So I came to Mount Doug, and the enrollment was 550. Remember that song? We were about 550 strong, and that's it.
So that takes us up to the mid-1960s. So campus at the time was not here. Mount Doug at the time was where Cedar Hill is.
Cedar Hill,
correct.
Yeah.
So that's mid-1960s, 1966, I believe, little John Howe came to,
That's right.
to
Yeah.
Mount Doug.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 66. It was an interesting transition for me because I'm coming from Lansdowne, which was at that time, believe it or not, it was over 1,000 kids. And it was feeding actually Oak Bay, Vic High. Gordon had a few people from Lansdowne were coming in this direction. It happened to be that at that particular time, Stan, I don't know if you would agree, it's sort of one of those times when a whole lot of very talented athletes all come together by random, and you end up now with a school that was, when we came, we were looking forward to it because it had a great rep. It was the school that was going to beat Oak Bay and Vic High. Yes. And we were coming to do that. And so we arrive on Mount Doug's doorstep. Stan, you'd already had, we'll call it a legacy from me, from people that I knew who had been taught by you, and I was fortunate enough to have you as my phys ed and community rep teacher. And sort of within all of that, the athletic program was starting to build. Stan was taking on the track team, and he has this, I'll call it sort of an uncanny knack of convincing people to kind of do things that they might not want to do. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so he started to put together a track team, and sort of unbeknownst to us, he also knew not only who the athletes were, but what they had been doing in junior high as far as track was concerned. And he put together a team that, although it was very small, was very, very successful. And that was the grade 11 year. We had some speedsters who were here, Rod Fitt, Bill Fadou, a number of other people. Next year, more athletes came, and that was the year that we finally put it together. And Mount Doug won the city track meet, first time ever, 550 students versus schools of 1,000. That's and a credit to what Stan was able to do with us. And then,
yeah, so I followed John. I'm a year younger than John, and so I came to Mount Doug with a great sense of optimism, and I really felt welcome. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later, but when I think of coming to Mount Doug from Gordon Head Junior Secondary, which is this facility here at that time, we had a very competitive track and field team. And the other team that we were really aware of that was really good in junior high was Lansdowne. And I was just hoping that some of those athletes would make their way to Mount Doug, because if they did, there was going to be a whole lot of track going on at Mount Doug. You know, obviously at Lansdowne, many of them go to Vic High and some come to Mount Doug. And we were lucky enough at that point to get a lot of the very good athletes coming to Mount Doug. So heading to Mount Doug, it was a wonderful thing. I never really felt that we were a small school, because I looked around at the number of athletes that were there for such a small school, and I didn't think we were small. In fact, I thought we had just a plethora of great athletes come at that point, as John alluded to. But I also felt incredibly welcome, and this is something where little things mean great things. I was at a track meet in grade 10. It was held at Lansdowne. It was field events going on. And a chap came to say hi to me. His name was Greg Fraser. And he said, "Are you Daryl Hooker?" And I said, "Last time I checked, yeah." And he said, "Well, I'm really looking forward to you coming to the school." He was the president-elect of the student council. And he made a point of going to the track meets to welcome the athletes to come to their school. Now, it might seem like a little thing, but that meant the world to me. They actually want me. And so instead of being timid and going to the high school from the junior high, I was emboldened. I thought, oh, bring it on. And that's sort of the attitude that came, because the then grade 12 students welcoming the grade 11s. It was a wonderful experience in that regard.
So that takes us up into the early 1970s, and that's of course when Mount Deb came to this site, and there was lots of changes. What do you remember of those then?
Well, as I said, the enrollment in 1963 when I arrived was about 550, and then by the mid-70s it was about 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000, and it stayed that way for quite a while, until, I think until Lambrick Park was built, and then, of course, they would draw some of the students from the Gordon Head area. And when I retired, it was around 800. Today, I think it's back up to 1,100, 11 plus. And the changes I saw when it was, well, one guy made a big change, Jack Lowther. Jack Lowther came to Mount Dog in 1970 as principal, and Jack had the perfect temperament for a principal, you know, and he really protected his teachers if they were in the right,
Yeah.
and he could make all kinds of, well, you heard him last night, somebody did, great speaker, and so he made a big difference. He made other teachers want to come to Mount Doug, and students wanted to come to Mount Doug. That was Jack Lowther.
So in fact, it was during the mid-70s when two former students actually came back to Mount Dog as teachers, John and Darrell. What do you remember coming in as new teachers?
Sort of to backtrack a bit, sort of the mid-70s, and you know, as a Mount Dog grad, you're always interested in what's happening. You could see things developing. The reputation that Mount Dog had built, and again, a credit to Jack. He was a great administrator, a great person, and he built a staff that supported a whole school, the academics, athletics, the arts, band. He didn't leave sort of any stone unturned. He hired the best people he possibly could in the classroom and for outside of the classroom. And so when I'm in my last year of teacher training, where in Victoria would you like to teach? Mount Doug. I wasn't the only guy who wanted to do that, because teachers who were already in the district looked at Mount Doug and that's where they wanted to go. Things were happening, and in the classroom, things were happening outside of the classroom. All types of programs were building. The kids themselves, and I'm looking at a number of them out here in the audience. The kids were fantastic. Yeah, your kids to us, sort of. The kids were great. You couldn't have asked for a nicer or a better situation to be in. You had a vibrant staff. It was young. You got along well together. Everybody wanted to make this the best place possible that they could, both in the classroom and outside. And things were happening. If you, and I was a sports junkie, that's what brought me to school. I enjoyed sports. Academics were okay, but sports was something that brought me to school. If you were that type of a person, there was something here for you. Academically, arts, it was all there. So I ended up teaching with Mr. Gill. And that was hard to get out of. Stan and I worked together for 12 years in the phys ed department, and that was a real treat for me. You had a chance to see, and the opportunity to see him continue to build his track athletes. I had the great fortune to also be able to help him out. When I was in high school, I was a sprinter, and I threw shot and discus, and when I came and taught, I offered to help a little bit with the throwing events. So I had a chance to work with him. We had some great trips, both with rugby and track together, and with track. And I guess you could say the atmosphere around track was probably electric. And People wanted,
Was it?
people wanted to compete, yeah, they wanted to compete, they wanted to be part of it.
Carol, what's your recollection as a teacher?
Well, I think that I've got a couple of points, but I'll just mention one of them. Coming back as a teacher, the athletes that came out to track at that time were slightly different from what John and I were. John and I were athletes. We were gym rats. I played every sport. What's the season? Oh, it's soccer season? I'm playing soccer. Basketball? I'm playing basketball. So, and the same with John. So whatever game was going, I was going. And Stan, at the time, you know, he turned me into a hurdler. You know, I was just a guy, I was a soccer player. Okay, well, you're doing hurdles now. So back in the late 60s, you just took general athletes and you turned them into track.
He still has a record for hurdles.
But, and then, so coming back in 75, one of the differences I observed is that a lot of the people who were running track at that time were more track specialists. So they had gone to track, they belonged to track clubs. And so I think by the mid-70s, and Stan might argue against this, but it seemed to me that things had changed a little bit. If you were a track athlete, you were more serious about it and you trained specifically for track and did the cross country to build up your abilities for the track season. And in the early and mid-60s, we didn't do so much of that. We just came out and ran our can off. So that was a difference.
So speaking of 1975, I was actually a student at Oak Bay High at the time, and I was just getting into track. I was there for 5 years, I've been here for 20.
Yeah, balances out. Yeah.
I remember just getting involved in track in 1975, going to Swan Malt relays, and it was, I read in the newspaper, I heard the legend about all these, the Mount Out track team. I remember going out and seeing their sprinters, their 4x1 team, and they were incredible. There was this, it was Derry Donaldson and Bob Jones, and not only were they incredibly fast, they had amazing hair. That's what I Derry Donaldson had maybe a 4, Bob Jones had an afro that rivaled Gino Vanelli. I thought they were pretty cool. I thought they were pretty cool, but they also were winning. So began quite a run, or beginning in the 60s, it was quite a run of championships. And not only is Stan an amazing coach, he's also got an amazing memory. So remember some of those provincial champions?
Well, first of all, the championship that I remember most of all is 1968 when John was on that team and we overturned Vic High and Oak Bay. Took down the big schools. And then after that, of course, it was 1969. Daryl was on that team. Then 70. John, were you on the 70 team?
73.
73, okay. So you were in the second place in the BCs, okay? But that's not bad, is it?
Nope.
And so this is supposed to be a history of track and field, so we won the BC championships 1969, 70. Then we second 71, 72, 73, 74. We won it in 75. These people were in that one. And 76. Gill was a sprinter. She ran anchor on the relay team. We won all 4 relay events in that year. And so then we had another drought. And the last championship we won was 1984. And my son happened to be on that team. Anyway, that is...
It was also cross country, though.
Yeah,
right?
and cross country, we had 11. We had 11 championships with track and cross country together. So that means that the cross country had 6 championships, teams. They won the BCs 4 years in a row at one stretch.
Wow.
So it was the year after Stan retired that I first came to Mount Doug, and it was the following year I took over as athletic director. And in the gym, it looks a little different now, but in the gym there was the boards up there with all the championships. And I remember taking the job as athletic director and on my own walking into the gym and looking up on the wall and feeling this huge amount of responsibility and a little bit intimidated. And it was shortly thereafter I got to know Stan, and we coached together for, even though he was retired, he came out and he helped me, and I was just this giant sponge trying to absorb all his knowledge and expertise. And he was just so nice and so helpful, so great with the kids, and we coached together for many, many years, and still today, it's great when the championships are going on. Very often Stan comes out and is asked to present the awards for the top athletes. It's always make a point of inviting them over and introducing the team. Tell them this is the legend. When you see, look up on the wall and you see all those championships, this is the man who made that happen. So it's, you know, although he hasn't taught it for a number of years, his legacy is still very prominent, very strong in the school. So I'm just wondering, we're kind of running out of time here, so I just wondered if, beginning with you, John, do you have any final comments specific to?
Sure, let me just
Okay.
follow up on
Sure.
what you were talking about in terms of a legacy. I've been fortunate to be able to announce at the City and Island track meets for the last number of years. And it's always interesting for me, I mean, the track and the athletes is wonderful, but there's a legacy that is at the track meet every year. It happens to be the coaches. If you, as I'm sitting up in the announcer's booth and I'm going Mount Doug track, Mount Doug track, Mount Doug track, Mount Doug track, and these are the coaches, not the athletes, they're the coaches. The legacy is the people who have continued on with track and field, and not just at the high school level, but also at UVic. And they continue to give back. And they've obviously they have a love for it, and it comes from Stan Gill.
Darryl, your final comment?
Yeah, my comment, reflecting back on extracurricular sport, that particular being track and field, psychologists agree that when you grow up and you become an adult, they suggest, and they've done surveys and statistics to back this up, that basically to become a productive adult, in addition to your parents, you have to make a sizable connection with at least one other adult. And that adult is usually either a teacher or a coach. And for me, it was a coach. And so from Stan, sure, he taught me how to go over hurdles without killing myself. But the most important thing is work rate. Long before Woody Allen came up with 80% of success is just showing up, Stan was teaching me that. He was also teaching me in terms of work rate. He believed in me, and as a student, if somebody believes in you, you're not going to let them down. You're going to carry on and be very successful as you can be. So to me, track and field at Mount Doug underlined the importance of that extracurricular connection to a person who's going to help you go from a kid to an adult. And Stan was that guy. Let's hear it for Stan.
Young fellow sitting back there that used to run long distance from Mount Doug, and he just told me that he made the Canadian cross-country team.
Well, qualified for Canadian.
Yeah, well done.
So Stan, I know this will be a hard one for you, but before final comment, do you have any favorite moments from your, is it 33 years as a teacher and then at least another decade as a coach after that? Any favorite moments that stand out?
Well, I told you that I came to Mount Doug in 1963, and I came from the University of Maine, where I had completed my master's degree in the summer. And so in order to get my diploma, I would have to go to the fall convocation, which was in October. But my wife was about ready to have a baby. So no way I could leave her here all by herself and fly 3,500 miles away. So I couldn't go to my fall convocation. They sent my diploma by mail, and I found out that the keynote speaker at that convocation was John F. Kennedy. Oh. Less than a month later, John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. And one other thing, my wife had the baby on the 30th of October, And I went to the hospital to see her. When I went home, I got a phone call from back in New Brunswick saying that my mom had died.
Oh, my goodness.
So my daughter was born, and my mom died the same day.
Oh,
Someplace in the Bible it says, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away."
So just my final comment is Mount Doug is, it's been a pleasure for myself to teach here for 20 years, and it's we have so many students who choose to come here, and we try and do the best job we can here now, but I know so much of it is based on our history, so much of it is based on that we've had fantastic teachers and fantastic coaches, so students trust that that legacy will continue, and we work hard to uphold that. So it's people like John and Stan and Daryl that although they haven't taught here or coached here for a number of years, they're still very present at this school. So it's a pleasure to try and continue on their legacy, and the pleasure to talk to you tonight about Mount Doug Track and Field. And any final comments?
We had some great trips, didn't we? We took those to New York.
Well, this one to Europe, yeah. We went down to, down to Oregon.
Oregon,
Yeah.
and California.
Yeah, yeah.
Any of you here go on the Edmonton trip by rail?
I did.
Yeah, just get up there.
So we're going to end the official part of our Doug's Talk, and again, we could, I'm sure these guys could talk for hours, so feel free to stick around if you want to reminisce and want to ask them some questions. That would be great. So
I'd just like to say, as a grad of 1967, and I taught at Lambert for 30 years with John, and I wasn't really into sports at Mount Doug as much, but I got into it and coached, and it just the memories that you have as a coach, it's amazing, and just hearing what all of you have to say. I was just saying I was getting kind of choked up because of the connections that you all had with each other, and it's amazing, and thank you all for what you've done. Stan for sure, and John and Daryl and Bernie coming up to do this. I think it's what's a really good history of Mount Doug, and it's just awesome, and the future's with you, and it's in good hands, it looks like. So
we're
thank you very
molding
much.
the future. We've
Yes.
got some great young staff here,
Yeah.
so it's
Great.
future looks good
Thank
for
you.
many years to come for this school.
Thank you, very, very good presentation.
I coached Daryl, and I also coached his boys.
Yeah. Twins.
That's right.
He's got twins, yeah.
Keep it in the family.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.